Over the past year, Dricus du Plessis and Israel Adesanya's bad blood has been brewing over who is the true African champion. Those emotions came to a head at the UFC 305 press conference earlier today.
It's obviously a see and tell. We can see that. What do you mean? You're saying that I
Bro,
made it
shut
about
You don't even know anything about my story. You have no idea who I am.
I don't care about your story. I don't care about your story.
Listen, my father and myself had to wake up at 4 a.m. and clean the banks while my mom studies to be a nurse. You don't know my story.
Amen.
Don't speak of my story if you don't know my story.
I don't care.
I will show you who you are Sunday. So right now, shut up.
I can't wait.
Back by unless you see.
You're talking about I made it about anything else.
You did.
Being
you
the
did.
First
Even you couldn't even
residing
respect the
African
people
champ.
of the land.
I am first.
The country, you were the one not even doing anything. I took my shoes off to connect with the people, with the mob. What did you do? You stand there and try to mean mug me. Are you stupid?
My man.
I'm not your
This is my land.
Oh, just not that. You're gonna do what I did, take as the first residing African. That was exactly
silly.
it. You
sound
never
like a pig.
can't change
I will
that.
slay you,
Impossible.
porky pig. Shut up, pink fit.
You can't change the facts, but you can't change those facts.
Well, sometimes the war of the words calms down as the fight approaches. This is not one of those times. Bristol, Connecticut, ESPN Studios. I'm Brenden Fitzgerald with Anthony Lionheart-Smith, Dean Thomas, and Brett Okamoto. Safe to say, Anthony, we've got a fight on our hands this Saturday.
Yeah, I love when things do get personal, and that sounds kind of dark, but typically you get better fights out of that when people are super emotional and there's a lot of feelings involved and they have a lot to prove to each other. I think it's going to be fireworks from the very first bell.
Yeah, I love this press conference because we forgot how great Israel Adesanya was. And I think this was a reminder of how much we missed him over the last 2 years. Just his emotion and his vulnerability and his just, I can't wait to watch him fight.
Yeah, and I think another thing that we forgot about this is that both of these guys have wanted this fight for a long time. This is not one of those situations where, hey, Dricus won a fight and so now he's facing the champion. Like, he was supposed to take this fight last year when Izzy was the champion, and now he's the champion. So this is a fight that both guys have been thinking about a lot. They've talked about it a lot. So anytime there's that long buildup, it just makes the fight, the stakes that much higher.
Well, point of fact, this all stems from when Dricus du Plessis several years ago on an interview said he would be the first residing UFC champion. That's exactly what he meant by living at home in his native South Africa. Israel Adesanya, among some others that were born in Africa but moved elsewhere, didn't sit well with them. What are your expectations on how this particular bad blood situation will affect this fight?
Well, I think all fighting gets better when there's a lot of stakes involved, right? And so these guys have a lot to brag about with all of their respective teams and people and where they live. And I think that raises the stakes and makes everyone more dangerous. Now, because both these guys are kind of heavy-handed strikers and that's kind of what they do anyway, I think it's going to elevate the stakes in that area of the game. If they were both wrestlers, they just would wrestle harder. But I think that these guys are going to really go in there and try to finish each other. And I think that it could go both ways. Sometimes you can fight emotionally and get a little bit outside your game plan and start making bad decisions, or it can really elevate you and really keep you focused. So it really depends on the person. It's different person to person.
Dean, you've coached in this situation, right? Been in the corner of Tyron Woodley when he's fighting Colby Covington. How do you handle it as a coach?
I mean, you really have to compartmentalize your emotions from the actual aspect of fighting, because those emotions can really, like Anthony said, take you so far out of your game because now you're just thinking kill, 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 and you're seeing red. You really have to just kind of separate that from the actual fight and go out there and say, all right, regardless, you have to respect this man as a fighter. He's very good. And we're not only doing this in a room by ourselves, but we're sharing this beef with the world. So we have to go out there and be as professional as we can, separate those emotions, and go out and fight your best fight.
Brett, what's your expectation for this particular matchup with the situation that surrounds it?
I'll tell you what I expect. I expect a great form of Israel Adesanya, and I know that that is a big question coming into this one because of how he looked in his last fight. So people are wondering, is he close to being done? What is the real Israel Adesanya look like? From my experience, what I have seen out of Izzy is that he rises in these situations, man. He likes to put extra pressure on himself. So I actually think this benefits Izzy. I have seen firsthand throughout his career that when the stakes are highest, he performs better. How is it going to impact Dricus du Plessis? We haven't seen that yet. And this guy, to give him credit, has always kind of come in with just sort of a kind of smirk on his face and says, this is business. This is fighting to me. He has not really been in a personal matchup like this. So I don't know what it's going to do to Dricus. I think that he'll probably handle it fine. But for Izzy, I expect it to elevate his game.
Well, Israel Adesanya's last show-stopping moment was in that rivalry with Alex Pereira for the middleweight championship, and he looked good when he had something to prove. For you, have you been in this situation where it's been personal with another fighter, and what did it do to you?
Yeah, I have. In my, kind of my little rivalry with Ryan Spann. The most important time that like a beef or some issues are going to help you is in the gym. It's through the training camp when you don't want to get up at 6 a.m. You don't want to go on those extra runs. You don't want to put in those extra rounds, but you do because you don't like that person. So that's when I found that it helped me the most. When you get to the fight, you try to shut your brain off as much as you can. And of course, you want to get a little bit extra, you want to get a little more aggressive, do a little more damage, but most of it helped me in the lead up to it in the motivation. When I was in there, I had to focus really hard to not do something stupid. You have to stick to a game plan. These guys are the best in the world. If you're outside of your game plan and you're just reacting on emotion, you could get yourself hurt.